say,
I still owe you an answer on the question how the title and for whom it is.
Yep.
So originally we thought more about like platform engineering without any specific user group written into the title, and focusing more on the part of like crafting a modern platform as a product thingy. But we discussed it in depth, and like we need somehow to address a little bit some kind of personas in the end, right? Else maybe not everyone will be also feel like we speak to them or might attract them. So we came up with an architect in the end, but we also got the feedback like most of the time it's more than that. It's not just for architects. It can be and should be actually for everyone who is around on platform engineering. We see that there are some people who have actually not that much technical experience anymore, but they are decision takers and makers and having the budget for some projects. They also like to read the first few chapters to understand why they should take a look into that. But it also helps more technical roles to understand where they should have a look into, and especially what is most important for us, and that's the biggest target which we try to achieve with the book, to make it in some way timeless. And how you make it timeless is that you do not focus 100% on the tech. So we give references for different implementations, but really just as an example. But we focus more on everything what platform engineering is in between the technical part. So I call it sometimes the glue, or the almost social skills, the soft skills, however you want to call it, which are, I think, even more relevant than just the implementing skills.
It's definitely a tool set to help not resolve, but like navigate organizational problems as well. So yeah, I definitely agree on your comments about this. And the first chapter was really nice, especially when you say IT leaders, decision makers. Yes, you want to understand what happened to DevOps and we have SREs and all that in between and cloud architects. So what is this new thing now? It is a perfect definition of why we need platform engineering, in my opinion.
You mentioned it here, the goes beyond the simple you build it, you run it. And actually this week I was working with a client, and I work with a lot of clients in terms of platform engineering, and the you build it and you run it, I have realized after talking to a few, is they are in a situation where they have a decentralized organization, that every service / app, right, when you're talking about large corporation, 1,000 engineers and more, they have a decentralized architecture or how they develop software. Like one would use GitHub Actions and the other one use Jenkins, for example. Like one typical example, just to throw something out there, like it's relatable, right? One is using Elantra ID and the other one using Cognito, like another one. So why? Because they build it, they run it. It's a decentralized. And then we're going back of like, people are asking, is platform engineering going in the opposite direction of centralized? And then is in English centralized the same word as bottleneck? So, and I think that's my conversations every week. So hopefully this book, I'll send it to a lot of people to understand what are the craziness that I'm talking about.
Well, I hear yesterday evening on a executive roundtable for platform engineering a very nice phrase, which was like freedom in a framework. So what platform engineering gives is like a standardization. I mean, Kubernetes is a standardization engine. And like when I was enterprise architect, everyone ran away when I said standardization. Nowadays, everyone goes to Kubernetes and don't realize that it's standardization. Yep. But I think that's the magic of platform engineering, that you can give freedom to teams more or less to do whatever they want to do, without that they feel like that. And if platforms are built well, then no one asks for unlimited freedomness. So it also doesn't make sense to like whatever, support 500 different databases. There's no reason on this planet to do it. It's the same for unlimited amount of programming languages. But most of the time, that's even not really the problem, right? So very often we talk more about like some prefer Jenkins, the other ones would like to have GitHub, the next one already on the stage of throwing Argo CD into it. But for me, that's just more like a question of evolution and what works for the individual teams well. And if one team found a way how to make it work for everyone well, then maybe the other one will adopt it automatically through time and also will start liking it.
So first thing that when I was reading this book is that and also this goes along with the work that I do. I don't know if Sebi is also doing this, is start talking about or breaking the problem for people to grasp their head around, is talk about capabilities. And I like that. I'm super happy because the things that I talk, right, are the things that are in this book, so I can just send them the book. The same thing with Mark's book on the technical implementation of it. But you start with
I ended up
capabilities.
highlighting the full chapter, so it didn't make sense. Everything was highlighted. So I'll have to just literally send a copy now.
Yeah. And also sending it to these YouTube videos, right? So the IDP, the capabilities. So a couple of things that you're going to highlight, and people can answer, can put questions in the chat, and then Sebi would bring that up. But this is a good one. I haven't seen somewhere else like a succinct definition of what is a platform, right? You went to the heart of like saying platform is the combination of different capabilities required to master, and you added traditional, because you may have a bunch of servers sitting in a building, right, and not necessarily on the cloud, but you also have cloud native environments, which I think you mentioned later. Like you can have cloud native environments with a bunch of machines in a building that supports end users in development, and you show, I guess you chose to not use developer, is an end user, and later you talk about like different users of this. But then you went to software, right? We're at the end of the day, I think we are talking about, we're not building cars, right? We're software. So software that gets developed, delivered, which I think is developed, is the person like crafting what library they're going to use from Python, or what API they're going to call. Delivery, which is, I think this is where like most people think it's just the platform and IDP is all about, and then like the two sides don't matter. The delivery, which I think a lot of people are just, they know what that is. Oh, it's CI/CD, right? It's like continuous integration and development and deploying the software, packaging it. But you have the last one, which is very important. I think you mentioned Hillary, right? Operations. Like, do the folks that operate it are involved? Does it matter? Like you build a software, you write the app, you build it, and then running it. Some aspects of that, just from your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, this is the important part. I always struggle with the term of IDP, of an internal development platform, because it's more than that, and it must be more than that. That's why we exclude, or we add there the operation part because of that, and we add there the end user and not just the developer, because end users are so much. It can be a product manager, it can be sometimes just some QA engineers who are maybe not that crazily familiar with all the stuff around and more looking into their frameworks. It can be, nowadays we talk about AI and data scientists. Now, by nature, a data scientist is not a software developer. It's not a software engineer. But a software engineer who needs to integrate a freshly trained model maybe also do not have an idea how all the data science part itself works. So there's a huge user group in the end behind it. And I think what we as platform engineers have to do and reach is to understand what is the purpose of the platform, for whom I'm going to build that, and then tweak the platform in this direction. And yes, it can be everywhere. It doesn't need to be the most highly sophisticated hypervisor where I have everything serverless and auto-managed Kubernetes and whatsoever. It can be bare metal machines. Why not? There's no one saying it's not working with bare metal. It's maybe not that fast, But frankly speaking, if you install a bare metal server, or if you wait your 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes on a standard private cloud or public cloud until the VM comes up, time-wise, there is not huge difference. Maybe plugging in cables, that's where the time goes into, but that's another thing, yeah.
And let's take a look at this
I,
diagram.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Sally.
Yeah. So I asked my
Mhm.
fluffy questions now, a bit harder one. You mentioned that you wanted the book to be timeless.
Yeah.
Do you think platform engineering is that approach now that is mature and will be time? Why do you think platform engineering could be timeless?
I think I described it somewhere in the book that we see at the moment a very interesting development in the market. So technologies, the speed of the development of technologies is keeping progressing, where we thought like, oh wow, open source is fast. Look into Gen AI, it's even double as fast. And it's not that
Yeah.
open as the open source community. While on the other hand side, especially if you look into the European market, I'm not so familiar with other markets, but we have hundreds of thousands and millions of people going to finish their career. They are leaving the job market. And there are not that much people coming into. Not that much people are interested. I see it when I'm for my company at job fairs or something like that. I'm like, hey, do you would like to make infrastructure and cloud and platform engineering? They're like, old man, go away. I want to make data science. I want to develop, I don't know, cool, fancy AI agent, whatever. And it's like, I can understand, but without us, it will finish. There's no one who will take care that your cool, fancy AI stuff is
Think
running.
about COBOL.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the most safest company on planet are those who teach their people to make COBOL and go into the banks and keep them alive. And they can ask unlimited amount of money for doing that. So for sure, at some point in time, there will come up the next methodology, whatever you want to call it, and most likely are replacing in the one way or the other platform engineering. But I think the concept here is also like, take what you have, like for example DevOps methodology, and keep develop it, evolve it, bring it to a new level, maybe break some concepts in it, and so on, which turns into platform engineering, which maybe turns into something else next. But that's why if the title doesn't fit, okay, then rip off the first page, but maybe the stuff which is written in the book is still valid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I have another, but like a short question. Do you think Kubernetes maturity also took us here in platform engineering, that we learned something from Kubernetes experience, like using more and more APIs, like interacting at different levels of abstractions that way?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a similarity? I mean,
Good question. I would yes and no. As a good consultant, it depends.
I didn't mean to lead you
Depends.
I didn't mean to lead you into an answer. So yeah, you can take your shoot at me. No worries.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said before, the thing with Kubernetes, it is a beautiful standardization engine. I always say to my customers, look, the more scripts you have in your automation pipelines, the more worse your automation is. Ideally, all IT systems can communicate with each other and understands with each other. For obvious reason, that's very illusionary. But if you run somewhere close by or near or around Kubernetes, that thing comes more or less a reality in most things. And I think that's what we can build on and rely on. Yeah.
Yeah, I have thought about
Thank you.
that on. I think it's platform engineering. If you remove the platform engineering, you call it something else, like using standards and agreeing to use them, right? That's a different name. Matches Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes to me is a lot of effort to just say let's use the same thing, like, and not let's not talk about Kubernetes. Just talk about one that we are most related about, that we stop talking about, at least for me, is a Docker file. Do we need to
Yeah.
have how many meetings, how many hours are we going to have to say what is the syntax of that Docker file? How does it work? How do you use it? How do you build the software? TGZ at the end of the day, right? It's just a TGZ. We don't spend that because why? Because at some point you get to a point like it's good enough that if everybody would use the same thing becomes a standard that everybody uses, and then we spend less time optimizing because someone can come up today with a better syntax for a Docker file, more easier, faster, improved, generative, like look for whatever performance, cost effective, like whatever it is it does it have a benefit if no one is going to use it, like it's going to be just this niche thing, or use something that it works and it gets improved but you don't have to change the standard. So that was Kubernetes 1.0. Was an API based on REST, based on reconciliation, on agents, or call it controllers. Now we have to call everything an agent, right? Agent back in my days when I'm doing things was bad. But I think it's just that finding in your organization something that we decide to say, hey, we're going to do things like this. They could be done better, but we don't have time to the market. Like just take something that like a lot of people are saying, like actually this is good. And then like in our industry, Alex, we live with fashion. We decide what we're going to run. How many meetings have you been that the first question is like, what should I use for this thing, right? It's like, what do I wear this month, right? It's like, what tool do I use for policy as code? Because why do you want to know like which one? No, wait, let me rephrase it. Like, what do you use? No, let me rephrase it. What most customers of AWS use policy as code? Because that's the one that I want to use because I'm in the fashion industry, right? So I think standardization is the thing that makes Kubernetes a standard, and then the ecosystem also are like around Kubernetes are becoming standards, right? Build standard on top of a standard. Anyway, that was my run. I don't know if you have comments, Max, or Sevi, or other ones. Yeah.
No, a very well deserved one.
Yeah.
So the other thing is you mentioned some case studies of Spotify, right? You get some stats on this. Do you happen to have the links to this so you can share them later? But I think it was good that you mentioned this as the beginning when you mentioned the title of the book, like platform engineering for architects. Maybe that's the feedback that you get, that you have called it like platform engineering for everyone. Could it be a better but everyone in the org kind of thing?
I had to learn, like, from a sales perspective, that's very bad. No, so the references here come from the platform engineering community from Guy and Uri.
Okay,
they have their very nice slide deck, and there you can find details about it. I mean, what we wanted to show here practically was that one is that also everyone understands success differently, right?
Yep.
If you take a look at GitHub, they measure their success in activity and code changes and stuff like that. If you take a look in Expedia, they are way more happy to see like how many users have documented something or read something in their documentation. Which I talked recently to another customer. They were like, "Oh, why this documentation thingy is such a big thing?" And it's like, yeah, well, how much service requests do you have because someone didn't read your documentation? Okay, well, a lot. And Toyota is on the other hand side a very good example to take more look on the business and economy side of the platform engineering, which impact you can have there. So I mean that's also part of the story. Not everyone who wants to implement a platform directly needs to have like the big monetary targets in front of the eye, or just only like, oh, we have now 500 times faster onboarding cycles. You need to find it for yourself, and that's what we also describe in the book. You need to find a purpose for your platform, and very often companies do not really have a purpose for building a platform.
Yep. Yeah, I mentioned this in the book, right? Like building a project versus a product, right?
Mhm.
And taking, I think you have a section where you mention like where when it's not good to build a platform. I don't know what section it is, but do you
Yeah.
you mentioned that, right? I think it
Yes.
was, do you need a platform? Oh, what, these are the
Exactly.
cases, right?
Exactly. So we took their two lists because on the one side, like what are signs for that you maybe shouldn't build a platform? I mean, very obvious stuff like monolithic applications. It doesn't help us if we spin up a 10 gigabyte container in a Kubernetes. I can literally throw out everything and just run the image on a server for that. Or if your DevOps sysadmin's infrastructure team is siloed or overworked, for platform engineering, you need, I always see it like you have two layers. You have the infrastructure layer, you have the application layer, but both teams need to continuously interact with each other. So it doesn't help me if I just take a team and throw them in and say like, oh, do your thing. You're were yesterday DevOps, today you're platform engineers. No, that's wrong. Don't relabel teams. I mean, enterprise does that, but don't relabel the team and so on. But on the other hand side, you have also good reasons why you maybe need a platform, why you maybe need an IDP. Either because you really would like to move into a direction of being digital native and take also an upfront invest on very complicated, larger scaling environments, which maybe will become complicated. Or what we see, a lot of our enterprise customers, they have already very large, complicated environments, and they hope with the move to cloud it become easier, but it didn't become easier. And they not have just one cloud provider; they have like 2, 3 cloud providers. And if you work for international companies, who maybe needs to run in US, Europe,
Required.
China, and South Korea, for example, the Western part is the same cloud provider. China is a completely different cloud provider, even if the same name is written on it. And South Korea has completely different legal requirements. So you are building 3 different solutions, even if you stay in the same cloud.
Yeah, like the one that is most that is you see in a lot of talks and blog posts is the development team is continuously overloaded with non-valuable tasks, right? What are these developers that I hired and I keep hiring in, right? They're not developing, they're doing other things beyond developing, right? Can we push that into a standardization, right?
Mhm.
And at the same time of not being a bottleneck. You mentioned something. I think it comes up a lot in the book is product and not project, right?
Yes.
And it happened to me this week with another client. Was I was telling them kind of it's going to be recorded. A secret is if you're looking into platform engineering and you have a team that is the platform engineer, to not tell the rest of the organization that you're building a new platform, because the next question they're going to ask you is like, when is the new platform going to be GA or done or complete, by which date?
Mhm.
And then a year goes by and they keep asking you when it's going to be done, and you have done like 1 or 2 capabilities of the platform and you need 6 more, but 2 are like good, are the biggest one that is the biggest bottlenecks. So that's kind of a trick. Like, do not tell anyone that you're building a new platform, because at the end of the day, if you are already building software, you have a platform, you're just enhancing it, and we're going to pick one capability, and most likely will be the one the biggest bottleneck. So I don't know, that correlates with this of like projects have an end. You mentioned something. Can you summarize what you mentioned here about like dates and
Yes.
end of dates?
Yeah. So, I mean, projects have a deadline, right? And it has a
Budgets.
reason why it's called deadline. Because if you reach it, the project is dead. Usually, it turns away the most needed developers. It takes away the budget. It takes maybe even away the owner of it. And then usually the project, the system you have built, gets hand over to some department. And at this point, you're lost. So you're absolutely right. You need to be aware that if you get a product mindset, this not only has something to do with the way how you build the platform and how you develop the platform and keep it alive. And you really need to keep it alive in enterprise environments. It's not about that it's your little happy plant which you grow in nurture. It's really like you have to defend it and fight for its life. It's like something everyone wants to have, but if they get it, they kill it in some way. And the other side of the story is that with the direction of a product, you also need to make the team who's working on it aware that they need to understand which value does their platform bring. Because if it brings value, then it can be a sustainable life cycle of keeping it running, having more or less infinite money, and so on and so forth. And yeah,
I have
about
a
the product.
question. Sorry, we're finished. Go ahead, Max.
No, I just wanted to say, like, we talk later in the book very much in depth about the product mindset and what does it really mean. But here it's just, we want to say clearly, like, look, if you make a lot of projects and you hit the deadline, your stuff is very fast dead, and then you don't go anywhere.
That was my exact question. If you're going to touch product mindset for products further in the book, and
Yes.
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And this SLAs, right? Like put SLAs and SLOs, SLIs. Like this is, you're building a centralized service, and other companies actually have it. Like have a centralized IT, you can call it that. Those are the ones that are paying for the VMs that run the CI/CD pipelines. Those are the ones paying for the third-party software that do the security scan, right? So you need to like be maintaining it, keeping up, like paying that vendor for the service. It becomes a product, right? If without that service that is the central team and the platform, you cannot continue like developing, building, and operating, right? The three things on the software. I think we have a hand up. Go ahead, Chad.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yes, so I wanted to ask about the idea of, like, if it's addressed in the book where, you've suggested to an organization that they need to develop a platform to kind of progress further, or the organization has like approached you, whoever you is in whatever context, that they think that they need to develop a platform, but they don't have the personnel currently. Like they don't have the person with like the idea of how to develop this platform. Does the book kind of address how to solve that problem?
Not really how to solve it, right? I mean, the very short answer is if you do not have anyone to build a platform, either don't build the platform or find the person. But I mean, this we cover a little bit more on the front where we ask, like, do you need a platform?
Yep.
If you can very clearly answer that you really need to build a platform because you see a business value in it, because your organization is on the right state, and so on and so forth, then you can also find a good reasoning, I don't know, to invest money in hiring new talents that can help building the platform. But if you will struggle with already that, then your organization maybe also doesn't need the platform.
Yeah, maybe a different way I've seen in other places is if you have 10 teams and each team, developing team, you don't have a platform team, you don't have anything centralized, you have 10 teams. I think it was had that model of taking one person from each team and assign it to the central team, right? You don't have any, the budget stays the same. It's just everything will go down to 9 people. And then you take those individuals and then you form the central IT team. And hopefully after 6 months, after a year, right, those 9 people can actually do the work of 12, maybe, because the central team is building a platform. They're taking over work that those teams are doing. So you don't have to get new funding. It's just you need to find a way of like those 9 people do the work of 10 for a period of time until they gain the benefits. So identify the biggest bottleneck or identifying the thing that those 9 people spend most of the time doing things that they should not be doing, then centrally. Like that's one way I've seen it in other companies.
No. While you're on the
Last
page
5 minutes, by the way, just wanted to give a shout for our new author to not be scared of our long-running sessions.
Yeah, good question. Good
We
question,
all
covered-
good.
Chad.
It's Friday evening. The only thing which can happen is that my cat starts scratching the door and asking for food. But while you were on the page with Backstage, to also put some context around that one, it's just like giving an overview of like how you can or how you should address also the developer experience. But maybe also to answer a little bit the question from before, like how you can get this or solve the problem with starting platforms and so on. Don't start with Backstage for platform engineering. Almost every organization we talk to, they assign 2-3 people only to maintain Backstage. It literally brings then 0 value, while if you would focus on automation, handle the infrastructure correctly, and so on and so forth, you would win very fast some room, some possibilities that people like to adopt, and then Backstage maybe comes later. One of our long-lived customers, which we have, they don't care about Backstage at all. They don't need it. There's no reason for it. There's even a dedicated team that builds Backstage. They talk with each other, but it's absolutely not needed for their whole platform which they're running. Only if you're reaching the point that it might help your development culture, then there's a good reason for going into this direction.
I'd like to also make one suggestion. Sometimes you need to get management buy-in, and for this, you probably need to put the least effort to the thinnest slice of a product possible. So I remember one of our previous authors, Sergio Mendes, once did a talk in Amsterdam for the smallest IDP. Like something to just show the value, like if you build it, people come, motto. So if you start testing out just an idea, and if you find a proof, you can actually get some buy-in to build this team afterwards. You don't actually need the team beforehand all the time.
Yeah, we cover it also in the book, but we call it the thinnest viable platform. So it's like a kind of version of an MVP, but we focus on the thinnest viable platform because it can mean different things to different groups. But yeah, you really need to you need to win the first few meters and show that it can help somehow, somewhere, and every investment you have taken helps already. And from there, you can win every game, every match after match, and evolve the platform itself.
All right. I have a question, Archie.
Yeah. Hi, Max, and thank you, Carlos, and everyone for this event. This is the first time I'm attending the book event. I just wanted to ask Max about I'm a DevOps engineer and I look after Kubernetes clusters and doing IC stuff. What could I expect from the book? I've got it, by the way, but yeah, I mean, what could I expect?
Yeah, so well, as said in the introduction, we really focus more on like in some way I would say like explaining the methodology and the questions which you should ask. We are writing and talking about like you should think about principles to follow, because we're living in an ecosystem where practically every second week some very fancy cool tool pops up, and then you need to ask your engineering culture, shall we jump all the time for the new hot stuff, or let's do and focus on something more relevant for us, and then principles for us can guide us there. But we also talk about golden paths. So sometimes you need to restrict yourself to a certain direction to win the heart of different groups of engineers. We talk about how to handle technical debts very much later in the book, because the reality, especially when we talk about IDPs, about the engineering around Kubernetes, is whatever decision you take for a technology, you will always have a technical debt. There's no perfect decision.
Yep.
And you will need to you need to reflect on that every now and then. And maybe after a while, after months, after a year, the technical debt of your past have become a potential opportunity for the future because the ecosystem change, right? So that's what the book will give you. It will give you checkpoints, it will give you questions, it will give you highlights on like, hey, look, you should be aware, for example, the socio-technical aspect. Platform engineering for us is maybe 30-40% engineering, but a lot of the other stuff is talking about processes. It's talking about the interaction with other people. We initially wanted to, or we have one sentence in the book which we very much like to say, but actually not the publisher didn't prefer it so much, was like build platforms that people desire, that they really want to go to, right? It's not that they like it, it's not that they love it, they really absolutely enjoy working on the platform. If you have that, if you get the feedback from your community, then that's the right thing.
Got it. Thanks, Max.
And by the way, happy Holi.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
I had in my calendar. So let's finish with one last topic about on this chapter talks about, I think what you were mentioning about the social, I think the section is the socio-technical aspects. And this is good because something that comes in the field is adoption. I think you were mentioning about building something that doesn't get adopted because of your fault. Like that's the thing to think about. You as a platform team, if you're building something and it's the most awesome thing, but it doesn't have adoption, it's your fault, not the end users. And it could be the best platform thing for you that you think you build, but you need to look into the social aspect of it about the users.
Yeah. If you cut one of those arrows, one of the strings, then one of the other aspects will dangle around. It will become an imbalance. That's how I see it. And the external system is actually our ecosystem, our open source ecosystem, which continuously push new stuff into it. Not only, right? There's also like different project management method and the market change and whatsoever, which always keeps pushing towards the platform of what you have engineered there, and it must survive that pressure in some way. And so if you cut one of these bidirectional arrows, the whole construction will get very weak, and then you will be not able to deliver something which will withstand that kind of external force.
And I think you mentioned at the beginning on the use cases why people build a platform, right? Like the benefits of like making things faster, making things less cost, right? More secure, meet deadlines, meet the regulatory. I think you mentioned regulatory constraints different on where you're running the software. So and then the budget, which I think you have here in the task. Like a lot of people concentrate only on the technology. I don't need my mouse shows, but only on the technology. But the task also you have the deliverables and goals. And one aspect I think you have later in the book is measurement of the platform, right? It's like anything that you do. I think that being like the new way of thinking, like where I work is, if you don't have data to measure what you're working at, what you're building, how do you know if it's working? How do you know it's getting better? How do you know that it's not working? So measuring like why are you building the platform? And then having for the stakeholders that give you the budget, right? Showing them so there's different aspects, like there are metrics and speed metrics. But those are the external systems that would like mess with your KPIs. I think there's a section in the book that talks about KPIs. So it's close with that, Max.
Yeah, no, we talk about that in depth. Also to, again, raise the awareness that adoption can be measured in different ways. So everyone is a big word. Most people know about DORA metrics,
Yep.
But this is a very delivery-oriented metric. And sometimes, depending on with whom you're talking about, they are extremely stressed out about DORA metrics, because the first thing when they come into the office and open a dashboard, and then there's written, oh, you have just delivered 5 packages this week. And it's like, yeah, it's Tuesday, 5 packages is a lot, and so on. So we also need to talk about sometimes more difficult to measure metrics, which can be, for example, space metrics, which then you can break down on individual level, on team level, but also on system level. But they look from more a surrounding perspective on it, right? And not just on the pure delivery. But we also talk about define your own KPIs, your own way of measuring it, similar to the examples from GitHub, Expedia, and Toyota, right? If they claim like, hey, look, for us the most important thing is 50,000 new documents are generated and everyone is reading it, and that's how we measure success. Perfect. Whatever makes you happy, that's the way to go. If they just would write like, oh, that's our DORA metrics, and now we are super duper cool because they're extremely high. Yeah, okay, most likely that's very good for you. But somehow I found then the story behind it less, I don't know how to say it, less impressive, less relevant, because you just have improved the way and the performance of delivery, but you haven't found out what does it bring to your organization.
Yeah, and leading